evening, Zambia. Good evening, viewers. Good evening, listeners. I don't know. And good evening, good morning, and good morning in Fishy with you. But otherwise, thank you for joining us for this week's BOMA Ni BANTU. And we continue to interact and engage government departments, government officers, and officials to share with us what is it that government is doing in delivering developments to the people. This evening, we're privileged to be joined by PS Maambo Haamaundu from the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development. PS Haamaundu, good evening.
Good evening, and good to be on BOMA Ni BANTU. Okay, nice and
we are very grateful, and thank you for accepting the invitation. And so we'll get to a point where we get to respond to questions from our viewers. And I do look forward to that particular segment of the show. But maybe before we get there, I would like to understand, what is it that the Ministry of Local Government is doing today in responding to challenges, responding to the needs of our people across the country?
Well, the ministry is quite an interesting ministry. I think at some point it's probably described as one of the human-centric or human-centered ministries, in that we deal with a lot of issues that relate to the day-to-day lives of the people. You know, when you look at what is under our jurisdiction as a ministry, I'll probably start with something which is a bit remote. Chiefs Affairs. You know, we deal with chiefs, their Royal Highnesses. In a manner of speaking, we have jurisdiction over handling of the affairs of their Royal Highnesses. We also deal with issues around local authorities. You know, you're saying BOMA Ni BANTU. Maybe we're actually the Ministry of BOMA Ni BANTU PANS. That is local government. So we deal with a number of local authorities, or all the local authorities actually are more or less under our jurisdiction. And you may note that under local authorities, we have things like cemeteries, we've got bus stations, we've got gardens, we've got parks, we've got an array of activities that are happening under local authorities. That is that too we have to look at. But the most topical one is actually the flagship program of CDF. CDF is housed by our ministry, and maybe many, when you ask them these days to say, when you talk about local government, they'll probably be talking about CDF. So we are responsible for ensuring that CDF activities are implemented properly across the country. So broadly speaking, that is what the Ministry of Local Government is all about. And perhaps I forgot one component as I was regurgitating the name of the ministry. There's rural development as well. So when you see bridges or crossing points being erected in rural parts of our country, that is that too falls under the Ministry of Local Government. When you look at feeder roads being worked on in the rural parts of the country, that's the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development. Bringing it back to Lusaka, where a number of you may be familiar about Lusaka, because I know majority of the population of our country has an interest or knows what is happening in Lusaka. There are a number of township roads which are being worked on. The responsibility of actually working on township roads lies with the Ministry of Local Government. You know, when you saw Makishi being turned into 2 lanes or dual carriageway, or whatever English you want to use, that was the Ministry of Local Government which was working on that. You also note that in Lusaka, when you are coming from the Mumba direction in the industrial area, there's a road called Manda Road, which goes right through in front of FRA. That road was quite in a state, and we worked on it as a ministry. There's another road in Matero, which was notorious. I think social media a year or two ago was awash with images of buses literally swimming as they're going through this particular road. It's the Twikatane Road in Matero. So that is one of the roads which we worked on as a ministry. So just to really emphasize the point, to say, other than the other things that I've mentioned, we are also responsible for township roads within the country. We are also in charge of, or we are the implementers of the Regional and Planning Act. So if you want to build a house, you have to get permission from local government through the local authorities. And in some instances where you don't have the local authority, which is the planning authority, it will actually come to the ministry. So in essence, that is an array of activities that we're involved in. That's why I was saying that as a ministry, we are really a ministry that deals with human beings from birth, and I must dare say till we die, because graves are under us, and for now with centralization, some component of healthcare is under us. So you may actually be born in a clinic or hospital which may going forward be under the jurisdiction of local government. So that is who we are as a ministry.
Thank you very much, my PS. So technically, what you are saying is that local government is a local version of the national government. So there is a national government, and then there is a local government. So your ministry works similarly to the national government, but at a local level. Is that safe to assume?
To a great extent, that is a very safe assumption to make, to say, yes, we've got central government, then we've got local government. So, as I was saying, it's a BOMA panza. BOMA Makombon, BOMA Yamu, my district. That is who we are. We are local. We deal with challenges at a local level. And that's why, amongst the other things that we have been given as a mandate now, is also to ensure that the decentralization agenda is implemented and implemented properly. So you're right, yes, it's a safe assumption to make, and it's not just a safe assumption, it's actually a correct analogy to make, to say there's central government and there's local government. So we replicate to a great extent, the functions of central government, except for those that are a preserve of central government, such as tax collections. That is your pay as you earn, your corporate tax. But of course, we also have our own local taxes where we get a 3 kwacha from a marketeer per day, or when you use a public toilet, we charge you 2 kwacha. Those are local taxes. But taxes such as pay as you earn, VAT, customs duty, things that are related to imports, those strictly remain a preserve of central government.
My PS, there's something that you mentioned, I think, which links this conversation to the conversation I had with the national coordinator for DMMU, and that is in relation to cholera. There were a number of things that we picked from our viewers who were indicating as to why do we always have to go through or suffer or face cholera every year. What is the position from local government?
It's an interesting question, really, to ask, to say, why do we always have cholera year in, year out? Or perhaps it may not be fair to say year in, year out, but why do we have cholera quite often? And I think from the conversations that you've had, or what you've probably heard, is that when you're looking at cholera, what causes cholera? It's essentially death. It's accumulation of garbage. It's also consumption of water, which may be contaminated, and the contamination may come from as a result of a number of activities, including mixture of fecal matter with water, and fecal matter which may be carrying the problem of cholera. So cholera, in essence, is a disease which can be associated with death. And Therefore, you ask a question to say, why cholera year in, year out? Of course, public sentiment at times you hear people quite often say, why are you not collecting garbage? You know, the council is failing in their job. No, Chishalapa Chapakisa, what are you doing? What are you doing about it? And I think it is probably high time that we change the conversation and actually give the correct narrative and the correct perspective. You know, yes, BOMA ni BOMA, but who is BOMA? BOMA ni BANTU. So, as people, as individuals, I think that we need to begin to take responsibility for our actions. We also need to own up and play our part as we are fighting this cholera. You know, when you move around Lusaka, you know, right now there's an outbreak of cholera, and you may be aware to say that there are a number of activities that are happening to try and redress or address the problem that is associated with cholera. And amongst them is a collection of what is being referred to as historical waste. As of a few days ago, we had collected in excess of 12,000 metric tons of garbage. And maybe just to give it context, because when you say 12,000 metric tons, sometimes it's a bit difficult to imagine. You know, if you're looking at these tipper trucks, the big ones, the 30-ton tipper trucks, we've actually had 400 loads of garbage collected and taken to Chunga. And all these 400 loads are or is garbage which has been illegally dumped. Generally, there's garbage which is collected by other people who are mandated or who have been given the job to collect, and they do their collections in many parts of Lusaka and indeed in the country generally. But the garbage that I'm referring to is garbage which has been dumped illegally, garbage which has found its way in drainages, garbage which has found its way in by the roadside. So we're saying to avert, escalation of the problem of cholera, as government, we had to move in to try and just see what we can do in terms of maintaining levels of cleanliness. So that is what we are doing in terms of garbage collection. Secondly, when you go into the CBD or many parts of the country, we've been telling people to say, let us all operate from designated trading places. Let's not vend where we're not supposed to vend, because the environment is unsanitary. And imagine now if one was to buy tomatoes, as an example, from a street vendor of no description, no name, and then you have the misfortune of actually getting cholera from this food that you have bought from a vendor at a place somewhere along Cairo Road. You don't know this person, and you've gotten cholera. You are giving government the problem of now tracing, to say, how do we trace the source of this cholera? And that in itself creates a complexity. But if you go into Kabata market or you go into city market, you know that I got my tomatoes from Vamai Banda Pajo Vana Musonda or Vamkava Haamaundu, shop number 2. So even when there's now contact tracing, it becomes easier, because I should be able to tell the people to say, I went into Kabata market, I went into this into the vegetable shelter. That woman who sells that, I can describe. And for the people from health or those dealing with public health, it becomes a bit easier for them to go into the area, identify the source, disinfect, and deal with the problem. But where you don't know where you got the tomatoes from, this same person will probably sell to 30, 40 people who won't be able to identify where they bought from. And that poses a big, big challenge. So that is the essence why, as a government generally, we've been advocating to say we need to reach a level where we're operating in a structured manner. And it's actually, if we can go down memory lane, not so long ago, sometime early last year, early 2023, there was a decision which was taken by ourselves, working with Road Transport Safety Agency, Zambia Police, and of course the local authorities. We actually said we need to remove vendors from the streets, and we need to begin to deal with these levels, because at that point we're actually saying we are seeing a challenge. There's a lot of unsanitary conditions that are existing, and if we allow this, we may actually have a challenge. So we moved in and we did what we did. And the good thing is that members of the public generally were supportive of what we did in terms of relocating or taking people to designated markets. And I do recall that at some point there was an argument to say, but you want to remove people out of the streets, or you're taking people out of the streets, where will they go? We don't have sufficient trading places. But we actually demonstrated as government to say we had plenty places. We had, I think, more than 10,000 trading places which were available. And most of the people who wanted to go into the markets were actually accommodated, fully accommodated in the markets. At City Market, we had a number of places. And even now, when you go to the City Market, there's BH, there's New Soweto, we still have empty trading places that are available in these places. So the argument really that was there at that point of saying we don't have sufficient trading places was not holding water. So it was just a question of people not being well informed, and people getting used to certain habits of just wanting to buy from places they consider to be convenient, and therefore perpetuating an illegality. And fast forward, now what we are stating as government is we have noted to say that there could still be a few elements of people who still want to go back into the CBD, near Stanley Bar, in front of Kulima Tower, trying to trade illegally. And we are saying that as government, this time around, our focus will not be on the vendors per se, because the vendors have an attraction. There's Haamaundu who wants to go and buy from them. So we are now shifting our focus to say, if we find Haamaundu buying on the streets, we are picking Haamaundu together with the vendor, and all of them will face similar sanctions in the eyes of the law. So we will no longer just focus on the vendor, but we will take out both the vendor and the one who's buying, because he or she is complicit to the crime. You cannot go there and pick one person to say they were doing wrong when it was actually, you say it takes two to tango, they were two tangling, but you just get one party to say this is the wrong one. So we'll be getting both, so that we can deal with both parties and deal with the situation. And ultimately, the bottom line is that as a society, we just need to all agree to say, if we want to operate in a structured manner, we have to act as people who believe that being structured is the ideal way. And therefore, we should have it in our mind to say we cannot go and buy things from undesignated trading places. We must go into the market. If we want to have a clean environment, if we want water to flow in our drainages, we must make a conscious decision to say, this is what we are looking for, and this is the ideal. And therefore, it wouldn't make sense, Pilato, for me to say that I hate debt, and I don't like this thing where drainages are clogged, and in the meantime, I'm probably driving with you in the car. When I finish taking my drink, I open the window and I toss a bottle out of the car into the same drainage. What am I saying? On one breath, I'm saying I hate this, but my actions suggest that I'm actually embracing this. I'm actually in love. This is a pretty girl that I love and I want to marry, and I do it repeatedly because I'm so much in love with this particular activity. So I think we must reach a level where we must begin to walk the talk.
Mm.
We can no longer continue saying, we want to be clean, yet our actions suggest that we're actually promoting a culture of being dirty, or we're actually acting in a manner that suggests that we are embracing unhygienic tendencies or unsanitary tendencies. So it's a conscious decision that we have to make. And I've also noted to say that generally as a society, we're a society who want to, for lack of a better term, we Sindisi one. So if Haamaundu is doing something which is wrong, and we know it is wrong, and it is affecting the greater society, would rather keep quiet, or we just whisper to say, Haamaundu never whisper. One day we'll report him. Why not report Haamaundu? Yeah. Or in fact, go confront Haamaundu, say, boss, why are you doing this? So you are messing up the yards of many people, and you've got dogs that are picking garbage and taking it to the next to the neighbor, and so on and so forth. I mean, it doesn't injure a relationship. Honesty is honesty. If I'm dirty and you tell me that I'm dirty, if I resist, it means I'm probably even more dirty than what you are seeing. But if my desire is to ensure that we get to a good position, I'll be courageous enough to say, okay, Pilato, but next time don't come and tell me to say you want dot. Just tell me to say, boss, use it to communicate to me. But in essence, that is one of the challenges that we really need to deal with. We need to be candid with one another and help one another achieve what we want to accomplish as a community, as a neighborhood, as a constituency, eventually as a country. We often tell ourselves to say, Kigali is a good place to go to because it is clean. We often give examples, say, Botswana National Park, you can't drop a paper. But why is it that when you cross the border just after Kazungula, you open your window again, you throw dirt? Or when you're in a public bus, across the borders, you dare not drop anything because you're afraid to say, Bangakomkele. You can even be taken back to Kasani, even when you're near the border to just go and collect what you have dropped. So discipline is something which we probably need to reinforce in our country, because we're the same people. When we're in other countries, we behave differently. When we get into ours, we behave differently. Unfortunately, the differently that we behave in our country is to the detriment of the country. But when you're in a foreign country, you maintain that country clean. So I'm putting a challenge to the people out there to say, why don't we, as members of the community, put more money in the pockets of government? Why don't we help fund government by just acting correctly? We actually don't need to literally get money from our pockets and put into the government coffers. Not at all. By just acting correctly, by not dumping garbage indiscriminately, by ensuring that we maintain high levels of hygiene, by going into the markets, we'll be helping to put money in the pockets of government. Because as of now, I just told you to say that so far we have done over 430-ton truckloads of garbage coming from Kanyama, coming from Kabwata, coming from Bauleni, coming from Mandevu, coming from across the city into Chunga dam sites. Imagine the amount of fuel that we have used just on these activities. Imagine the amount of time that officers had to commit to clear the garbage. All this is money. The fuel that we're burning is money. And if we're acting correctly, there would have been no need for us to be doing all these activities. This money which we have spent on taking out 400 trucks of garbage would have actually been used to buy a desk, or would have been used to pay a bursary for somebody at the University of Zambia, or would have been used to put up a street lighting, or would have actually indeed built a store, a trading place in some marketplace, would have been delivering service as government to the people. Yes, we are delivering service, but this service that we are delivering now is as a result of wrong behavior by ourselves. So we can actually put money and more money into the pockets of the government if we just agree to say, let us act correctly. But there's another thing. There's this aspect of recycling. There's an opportunity to create employment for the youths by just picking plastics and taking them to recycling companies, and they will give these pickers money for that activity. The recycling company will in turn convert this garbage into a stool, into a desk, into other items which they will sell. And when they sell, they make profits, and of course in the process they employ other people. And when they make profit, they pay taxes to government. All the parties that I've mentioned in this transaction will be happy. The youth runs away because they'll have money. The business player also is happy because they are generating a business opportunity, and they are making money for themselves. Government is smiling because he is a person who's creating employment. There's also a business opportunity. There's a tax revenues that are being collected, and the environment is clean. It's a perfect scenario. So we just need to begin to really act a bit more better, or maybe saying beginning is being too mean on the people, because there are some people who are doing this and they are doing it properly. So what we probably need to do now is enhance some of these activities so that we begin to get the dividends of our good behavior as the people of the country.
Yes, there is something I would like also you to talk about. The partnership. Government has entered into strategic partnerships with the communities, with the people, in responding to this cholera issue. And one of the partnerships that comes to mind, which I think you may comment on, is a partnership with the church, where the church has even taken a step further to say they will even host a prayer meeting. The government has also partnered with a number of artists, where artists are actively involved with the communities to engage and share information on cholera. Particularly on the partnership with church, how is this strategic? How is this helpful to the community? Why did you, as government, decide to partner with the church in addressing in dealing with the cholera crisis?
I think it was a fantastic arrangement. I think the church came forth to say this is a national problem and we need to deal with it. And of course, as government, we also reached out. So we found a point of convergence. So the church and the government sat and agreed on broad parameters on what we need to do to deal with the challenges that we have seen, particularly with this cholera. So you will indeed note that the church has, working with government, has called on a day for prayer. Of course, some sections of society have been saying to say, no, but how can you just pray? It will not sort out the problem. But I can argue to say, yes, of course, praying when you just kneel down and pray doesn't sort out the problem. But for those of us who are believers, when you pray, after praying, it gives you impetus to go out there and confront a number of challenges that you are faced with. It soothes your soul. It gives you comfort to say, now the Spirit is in us. Let us move and do what we need to do. After all, even the Bible tells us to say, faith without works is dead. So it is really not an activity where we just want to waste time. Not at all. Praying is necessary. Most of us pray every day in our homes. And besides, as government, we have not said you are compelled, all of you must come and pray. It is voluntary. You must come through. If you feel the conviction to say, we need to pray, you come through. And, the churches are dotted around our communities. They are part of our communities, and they are respected in many of our communities. And therefore, who's best suited to pass on this message of hygiene? Who's best suited to pass on this message of washing your hands with soap, other than the church? I think the church has a very, very good disposition in terms of sending out a message. I think the only people that they can compete with, perhaps, especially amongst the children, are teachers. Because we've had experiences where you tell your child to say, don't do that. But if the teacher at school told them to do something else, they'll tell you, say, no, Daddy, I don't agree with you. Teacher said. So that is a different ballgame altogether. But another fantastic relationship that I'm seeing coming up now is actually the relationship with the community. There's a good response that is coming up in many parts of the country. Other than the Keep Zambia Clean, Green and Healthy campaign, where everyone cleans on a Friday across the country, between 7 and 9. I've noted, particularly in Osaka, when you're driving around now, in the mornings, you see a number of people are cleaning drainages. And for us, that is a positive thing. It's a good response. I did mention to say that in Baoleni, we're collecting garbage from there. One thing that I did not mention is that the members of the community, on their own, in some parts of Baoleni, have noted to say there is a problem and the solution lies with ourselves. They themselves mobilized and they started clearing the drainages. And all they did was they got in touch with the council to say, we have removed garbage from the drains. Can you help us to pick this garbage and take it to the dump site? And that is a very, very good initiative coming from community members. Private sector players, I think when you watch the news nowadays, you will see that there are a number of donations that are being made by private sector players. For us dealing with solid waste, a few days ago, we actually received 1,000 liters of fuel from Mount Meru just to help or to support this cause of cleaning garbage. There's a company called the SJ Top Branding Company. They contributed a truck and a front-end loader to help to collect the garbage. As government, we're just putting in fuel. And I must mention to say that if we're to hire these particular trucks, it will probably be costing us maybe around 4,000, 5,000 for a truck, and for the front-end loader, maybe another 3,000 or 4,000. So we'll be spending maybe 8 to 10,000 kwacha per day just on hire. But corporate players have said, here we want to ensure that the community that we operate in is safe. AVIC have also come on board. Sable Transport have also come on board. CowG have also come on board. A number of private sector players have actually put forth their equipment to clean up places within our communities. And as we are doing that, I'm happy to note that you actually said artists. Artists have also, we've had overwhelming response from artists. A few days ago, we had artists who came through to the ministry, a group calling themselves the Liseli Sisters. They produced a song on cholera, just sensitizing the public. And I've seen a number of other artists who have done a lot of music to support the fight against cholera. And in terms of engagement or sensitization of the public, we have a number of drama groups who've been going around the residential areas to sensitize people, to communicate to them, to say, this is how you can get cholera, this is how you can avoid cholera, this is what you need to do to ensure that you are really living in a clean environment. So we, as government, we are happy with the response that is coming from a number of sectors of society across the board. And I think this is the way it must be when we are faced with a situation such as the one which is obtaining. We really need to come together. We really need to work together and not point a finger at one another, because that cannot solve a problem. But when we put our hands together and begin to work, we most certainly will solve a problem. And this is what we are seeing happening now, because you can also note that from when you look at the incidence of cholera now, the numbers are appearing to be under control. There's a drop in the number of admissions in the last couple of days, and that is a trajectory which we hope to maintain. And this is all as a result of your intervention, my intervention, the intervention of ADVIC, the intervention of private sector players, those who've been providing government with water tanks, for the water tanks to be placed in Kanyama, to be placed in George compound, those who've been providing rings, which are stands for the water tanks. So you can actually see that there is a collaboration, a great collaboration, which is happening within our country. And I think that, if we're a football team, because it reminds me of football now, because I can see the Africa Cup of Nations is on, and Nigeria is almost beating Cote d'Ivoire. I would actually be saying we are now playing well and we are scoring goals because we are coordinated. We are not pointing fingers at one another. No, we know to say, when I dribble past Pilato, I pass the ball to the Sisters, and the net is wide open. The Sisters will score, and that is the collaboration which we really are applauding as government when it comes to the fight against cholera. And I must once again say that the reception has been overwhelming. WHO has given us vaccines as a country, oral vaccines. Though, yes, I've heard a few people who are saying, if you are cholera, just take cachaso, you'll be okay. That's a story for another day. But in terms of partnership, I think that we've seen a very, very good partnership, and that is the way we must go, and we must continue in that direction as we are dealing with the challenge before us.
PS, I want to get to the questions. So our viewers have expressed their thoughts, and some have asked questions. I will go through some of the questions and comments and see which ones we can respond to some of them.
Just remind me to say that I'm not what do you call it? I'm not in an examination, eh? So they should be mindful the way they ask questions. Anyway, any question is welcome.
All right, so this one is coming from Albert Monga, who says, PS, you are right when you talk about discipline. But the thing is, our authorities are weak. People are afraid in other countries because of stiff penalties involved in case of found wanting. Our laws must be stiff, especially under your ministry, PS. Everything comes at a cost, and cleanliness must somehow cost you, otherwise we'll continue singing the same song. That's someone asking you to be very strict and very tough on
I'll go to Albert Monga's place, and I think I'll set an example on him. If we find him abrogating the law, we'll act with him appropriately. Yeah, but I agree with him to to some extent, to say that people normally are afraid when you crack the whip. They don't want to be spoken to and to just be guided generally. So it's a direction that we are moving in, and we hope to see better compliance. But I mean, we're expecting to say that we're a mature society. We've got people who are well educated. Why should you wait for me to come and knock money out of you or take you to a prison before you begin to act correctly? But if that is what it takes, we are up to the game. We'll move in that direction.
This particular one comes from Boas Kanyama, junior economist, who says, where are the recycling companies? I think as an economist, he wants to start delivering plastics for recycling. Would you be in a position to advise where some of the recycling companies are?
The number of recycling companies that are available in Lusaka, I can give an example of a place which is very prominent in Baoleni. When you go to the before Takamado school, there's a team of collectors there who call themselves Manja Pamos. That's one of the places where you can find people who are collecting this for recycling. But in terms of where they operate from, most of them are in the light industrial areas. And all Boas needs to do is also just take a walk sometimes informally. You'll find there are a number of collectors in many parts of Lusaka where you see a pile of sacks and empty containers. Just ask them. They'll point to you where the recycling companies are. But otherwise, I've mentioned one, Manjapamozi, which is actually part of the Coca-Cola Zambia brand.
Yes, there's Elijah Excellence Katuka, who says, leadership, our able PS, I want to find out what your ministry is doing in outskirts areas where boreholes have stopped working. I took interest because wells are becoming dangerous to rely on because some plots are small to make a toilet and a well.
Okay, an interesting question, though it may have some incomplete information. At the boreholes that have stopped working, are these boreholes for the water and storage company, or they are boreholes for private individuals? So if it's a borehole for a private individual, my brother, Mr. Katuka, I would encourage you to sink another borehole. And perhaps before you sink another one, just carry out a survey to ensure that you get the correct depth, so that when you are in the dry season, you don't your borehole doesn't run dry. The other question that he asks is indeed wells and a well and a toilet, because of the size of the plot, are not friends. You should not have a well and a pit latrine next to each other, because otherwise that's a straight way to get a disease. And you will note that the president has actually given a directive to say we bury all shallow wells. And as government, we've actually started that process. We've superchlorinated a number of them, probably close to 400 so far, and we'll be burying these shallow wells. You also note that our colleagues from water, working with Lusaka Water and Storage, have begun the process of emptying or decanting some of the pit latrines. This is just to ensure that there is no contamination of water or underground water sources. So this is an activity which is ongoing. But in terms of long-term measures, what we probably need to do more is to have a structured approach in terms of development. I did mention in our introduction to say we are in charge of or implement the Regional Planning Act, and that prescribes that we need to have integrated development plans. So we need to have a structured approach to anything so that we know where we will put our water source, we know where our sewer lines will be, we know where our airport will be, we know where the dump site will be, or the landfill, because we know that when you put a landfill next to a water source, the underground water is contaminated. Or when you put it near an airport, there's a chance that you may have a problem with planes because of the birds that will be landing there to try and scavenge. So we need to have a structured approach, my brother. But otherwise, in terms of your boreholes, if it's a private borehole, I'm afraid you have to make a private decision on making it deeper or sinking a different one. But if you are connected to water and sewerage, that is a problem which will be dealt with. You may actually be your water may actually be, you can get it from a different source other than the borehole. That's the responsibility of the water and sewerage company when it comes to water.
Yes, this one comes from Mark Kelvin, who is watching from YouTube. And he says, P.S. I think what is expected from the church is to come on the ground and do the work, not gathering to pray, because cholera is not a prayable matter. That is laziness. I don't know what your reaction is to that one, my PS.
Well, look, he's expressing an opinion, and what is good from the opinion that he's expressing is that in terms of the end game, we are all looking at cleanliness. Even him, the direction is cleanliness. The church is also looking at cleanliness. So that is, for me, it's a good thing. When you're looking at what we want to accomplish, we are all going in the same direction. It's just a question of how we want to get there. So I mentioned earlier on to say, for me, there are people who get the drive to do something after they've prayed. We cannot stop them, because if we stop them, they will not be available, they will not have the drive, and we might miss out in terms of work. So ultimately, what is important is that we are moving in the same direction. And the church have actually committed in a number of places. They are cleaning their surroundings. The church, using their members, are cleaning their surroundings. And they are also passing on the message to the next person in terms of cleaning their surrounding. So they are not just on their knees and praying or meditating, but they're actually doing practical things about resolving the challenge at hand, which in my view is a good thing.
Yes, this one is coming from Njamba Mukube, who says, we are happy with the water that you are supplying us, but most of the time, the water finish very fast because we have a lot of people at our area, garden house area. Please make it twice in a week.
I think for that one is just a comment really worth noting, is giving us feedback to say the activity that we've engaged in terms of supplying water is a good activity, and it is bearing positive results and responses, and we must double our effort, which is actually a good thing. And I think I'll communicate with my colleague who's running with this particular aspect to see to it that we enhance communication between the people within the residential areas and ourselves, so that we have adequate water supply all the times. And that's the main purpose, really, why we place these tanks within the residential areas.
This one is coming from Alex Kenyirenda, who says, P.S. Thank you. The efforts of garbage collection you talked about, what initiatives going forward as a government plan or put in place to curb this situation, especially in Lusaka rural places where there are substandard structures?
Thank you, Alex. What plans do we have? I mentioned that we need to have integrated development plans. I can actually mention to say that for Lusaka, there's a plan to have the greater city of Lusaka, which will encompass parts of Chongwe, parts of Chivombo, parts of Shibuyunji, parts of Chilanga, parts of Kafue, and there's a master plan that is being developed, which is when I mentioned to say it's Vision 2045, others may say, in 2045, kutali konse. It sounds very far, but at least there's something which is being done. But in the short to medium term, I think the biggest message really is if we all act correctly, if we all ensure that we go to the local authorities to get planning permission or building permission, if as local authorities we also do not sit in our offices and swing in the chair the way I'm swinging, but go out there to ensure that what is being constructed is not substandard, we'll be making a lot of progress really, because members of the public also, if they do help to raise the alarm when they see a substandard structure coming up, you'll be helping the cause, because this is a member of the public who's saying he's actually noticed there are some substructures, but perhaps we need to go a step further to say where are these substructures, substandard structures, so that we can see how we can take corrective action. So it's about acting correctly, and I think that is the key word really. We must not just talk about things, but we must also act and act correctly, so that we actually ensure that we've got a good future going forward.
Yes, this one is coming from Bone Crushing Kole, who says, Impia Shiliasha Alese Indabakada. Imomutwala Queen. Don't ignore this question, answer it, please. So I'm sure this is in relation to the monies that were collected from the bus stations and markets by cadres. So Bone Crush is asking, where are you taking this money?
Bone Crushing Kole, ati mpia tutwala kwi. Impia kavileshia bale foresha banenu bakanzo parusa kanomba bali up to date bale fola wino bantu bakada na bali kokolupyo ero chimcho bulefu ayiko kwibukisho kutila lidia bakada balepoke mpia ichalo chino na chena ukusaidi na chena chalepo korupia kumbi chali kwete nenkongole so abengi bamona kwati atao uteko nomba pala ndati bakade wale sende mpia nomba wena wale twala kwisa limbi wale tumina wale volupia atakururegeto rupia lwa bantu urupia ronzenga twapoka inga bus stop mu banki pa market mu banki lumbero bale bomfyo kukulira ama market na lumbyo rupio balepoka kunchende shingi muno muchalo elu lemule monati lwaya ku CDF bamba no kumpangira amaboho bambo kumkulira ama market waleshita ba deski lupia lonsoro mutsungu to the land that ni management number, so the money is being managed properly and it is being realigned. So wawishi olupiolo lulevomba na ma results diminamu amma no kwamona fyo money ile vomba vakada wali avale start 9 hours na kwata na chiigo 9 hours alenwa chiigo na atumana phone kuli madam ato taken poamenshi inkoko ileisa. Now for you to get money you have to work, and it's a culture which we must learn. We must work and work and work.
Yes,
and when
you
are what? Is there any other question, Pilato? Or is the network misconducting itself?
P.S. We are almost coming to the close of the program, but I want you to respond. First, respond to Mr. Swanza Geoffrey, who is saying, "P.S. Garden House has no clean water. Is a settlement area planned or what?" I'm also trying. I think this is confusing. Because remember the other contribution came from Garden House, where somebody was saying they receive water, but it's not. They're asking for more tanks. So I think maybe may respond to that one, but I thought I could also mention that.
Yeah, the garden house area is one of those settlements which were not planned or properly planned. I think originally that was the farming area, and you will note that they don't have, in many places they don't have piped water. So that actually shows you to say that if it was planned by a private developer as opposed to planned by government generally. Because in a number of places where it's planned for properly, normally there's a provision of at least water. I know that sewer lines over a period of time have been a bit of a challenge, but at least water is planned for. So that area may not be a properly planned for area, or if it is a planned for area, it means water and sewerage have not yet put lines near your place. That's why you are now depending on sinking boreholes and having water from other sources, such as having a bowser come through to decant water into your tank and such related activities.
This one is under G. Under G says the council used to go many months without getting paid, but now they are getting paid under the new Dawn government. This will promote the council workers to work so hard. I think
I can actually confirm that the council workers, particularly in Lusaka, are working so hard. I had somebody who sent me a message to say, it's a Saturday, I'm surprised your people are working at the council. He even took a photo of them in the revenue hall. So this is the culture which we want to encourage. You work hard, you get rewarded. You don't work hard, you don't get rewarded. It's a simple rule of nature, really. So we all just need to really work hard. Just like I'm diverting again, if I go into football, when you look at the people you consider to be the greatest football players, they work so hard. Even in Zambia, if we're looking at one of the greatest goalkeepers that we had, Ifot Chavala. I watched that man when I was a little bit younger in the early 90s. I was almost beginning to work, but in training, that man would be at the training ground early in the morning, running up and down the terraces, doing some press ups, punching the ball. He did a lot of training, hard work, and the results were showing. When he's on the pitch, Ifo Chavala was one of those players who, at that time, the skill of handling the ball could have been compared to Peter Schmeichel, where somebody would be crossing the ball and you would bring it down with one hand. It's hard work. So we just all need to really work hard if we want to enjoy the fruits. And it's actually very fulfilling to say after a hard day work, you sit down and enjoy the fruit of your labor. It's a very satisfying feeling, and that is what we must all aspire to do as a people. Not 10 hours, you're just sitting there. Hello, 20 kwacha just for doing nothing, you're just sitting there, and it's really ridiculous. Of course, people thought those guys were champions, but look, now when you look at those same people who are getting money from people like that, they've got no money at all because it was easy come, easy go. But if you work hard for the money, you'll be planning on how to utilize that money. You'll be planning on how to invest you'll be buying a plot, you'll be investing in Kayango, you'll be investing in a business at home, you'll be investing in a farming activity, you'll be doing a lot of things, or you'll be sending your children to school. That is what happens if it is hard-earned money. But easy come, easy go.
Yes, we've come to the end of the program and 3 minutes beyond. I would like to ask you to share your concluding remarks with our viewers, and hopefully we'll have you again on this particular platform. But for now, your concluding remarks.
Well, my concluding remarks would be that in anything we do, we must ensure that we are positive and we take those steps. It may be a little step, but that little step can contribute towards a very, very positive change. So let us all begin to act and act correctly. And you will see that in the end, the results will be marvelous. And when I have something in my office which I believe in, to say change is hard at the beginning, messy in the middle, but gorgeous at the end. So it's a process of transformation that we are going in. So let us just run the course. We are certainly getting to a better place as a country. With your collaboration and cooperation, countrymen and women, we will transform this country. And Pilato, I salute you for the effort. Have a good evening. Allow me to retire now. I think I've worked enough. It's 21:05. I've been in the office from as early as 7:30.
Atikulibe overtime mu BOMA, mushitachani mu office.
No overtime, guy. It's a satisfaction that you get from seeing a transformation. So that is what we get paid. Satisfaction to say, no bowling kwa Monica Buino, at least manja pa kumakeni manzi yankalako Buino. That is the satisfaction. That is the gratitude that we get from members of the community. Yes, we are not given any overtime, but that's what we signed up for. Boy. Don't go out there kutwanga not in the PS and you are throwing your weight around, nothing. Ndiweka boy chape iwe naine ndisewaka boy. Mabosses watu bali makomboni.
Kombokani, PS, kombokani.
Ziko.
Good night, my PS.
All right, good night.